Genesis 46 can be easily divided into three sections. The first section is Jacob's vision that God would be with him as he journeyed to Egypt. This section is important because it reassures Jacob that this is part of God's plan. Going down to Egypt has not been seen as a good thing so far. Joseph went to Egypt against his will, right, and in chains. Isaac, if you remember, was told not to go to Egypt at all. And when Abraham went, it was also during a famine, and it became a moment where we saw Abraham did not fully trust God. This God-delivered dream assures Jacob, who's likely afraid, that God will be with him. The second section of this chapter is a genealogy of Jacob's family. It displays Jacob's sons and their children. And then in the third section is the restoration of Jacob's family in Egypt. Verse 29 displays Joseph's emotional and excited state. Joseph made ready his chariot, is what the text says, and he went up to meet his father Israel in Goshen. He presented himself to him, fell on his neck, and wept in his neck. Joseph reveals himself to his father for the very first time, probably something that he thought would be impossible just months before. The family is restored. Now, if we're going to be completely frank, sections 1 and 3 easily draw our attention, but section 2 is very easy just to skip over. We see the long list of names and we begin to get kind of a glazed look in our eyes, right? Because genealogies can just kind of put us to sleep. But genealogies in the Bible are nothing to be slept on. What we see in the family tree of Jacob is God's promise to Abraham coming to fruition. The genealogy of Genesis 46 showcases not just that God fulfilled his promise, which is a truly big deal, but that God's family has a purpose to walk with God and bless the nations. Remember back to Genesis 12 and God's calling of Abram at the time. He promised that he would have land and many descendants, and through his people he would bless the nations. Well, the genealogy of Genesis 46 showcases the blessing of the nations. We see that God's plan is to bless the nations not just through Israel serving other countries, but through Israel being a multi-ethnic family. The genealogy highlights this fact. In it, we see, for example, Simeon's son, Saul, was born from a Canaanite woman. We are reminded that Judah married a Canaanite woman, Shua, and that Perez, which is the ancestor of King David, comes from Tamar, a Canaanite woman. But also Joseph and his family are included. He married Aseneth, an Egyptian woman, and thus his children are Egyptian. Within the very makeup of Jacob's family, the blessing of the world comes. And being Hebrew and Canaanite and Egyptian, the family of Abraham blesses the nations by having a presence amongst the nations. This showcases that God is not just the God of the Hebrews, but is truly the God over all. Family names, like last names, are very interesting. Some of them come from a distant ancestor's occupation. So Smith simply means a worker of metals, right? Wright means a skilled worker, usually of wood. Cooper was a repairer of barrels. Webster was actually just a weaver. What this means is that some people's family names simply derive from the family business. Similarly, God's family understands who we are by our name. As new creations, we are Christians. Being in God's family means that we follow God in and through Christ. Thus, that's who we get our namesake from. But in being like Christ, we also know that our purpose is to bless the nations, because that's exactly what Jesus accomplished. For God so loved the world, as John 3:16 says, that he gave his one and only Son. Being a part of God's family, we too have a purpose. That purpose is to walk with God and to bless the nations. And through this divine plan, the world is truly blessed.